Well, as we promised you before, local activist Devante Hill joins us now from Minneapolis, and he's here to give us some sense of what the mood was there on the ground before and after the guilty verdicts there. Devante, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, man.
Quite an emotional day there for you. Tell us a little about what you felt and what you saw there.
Just minutes before the verdict would have come out or the jury would have come out, it seems as if almost the entire city was just like completely enthralled with just this overt emotion, kind of unexplainable. Um, it, it, it was just an experience that I really it's hard to articulate it, and I'm hard to not have a response, but in this instance, I have a hard time responding. There were people who were really nervous, who were so passionate in the moment that perhaps they just wanted to just sit on the corner. There were also people who perhaps were in fear, and you know it's just a moment that's hard to articulate. It's hard to articulate exactly what the emotion was, but what I can say is, the emotion after the verdict was read was just one of just a sigh of relief, a huge sigh of relief, a huge sigh of relief. It felt as if America had finally acknowledged people of color. That was a grave emotion. It also felt as if, not that this was the end all be all, but that at some point in time, America for 400 years has also desperately needed a heart transplant. And so it felt as if the judge and the jury had finally diagnosed what people of color had always known was there. And I think that was just monumental for the desire for a true reform bill coming from a federal level versus trying to articulate policies and maneuver through those loopholes.
You used the word a heart transplant and talking about transformation. You've been involved with talks about that around here. Dialogue over police reform right here in Memphis following, of course, a series of local protests which mirrored others across the country. So how did those go, and did anything come out of those conversations with Mayor Jim Strickland?
I think that there was some degree of productivity out of those meetings with Mayor Strickland and Director Rawlins at that time, and the Shelby County Sheriff, and all those leaders who were invited into that space. Of course, my expectation was a bit higher, not even so much as, for Mayor Strickland or for the director or for, my expectation was just really high for us to just be able to pull something from those meetings that would be meaningful. And I think we did as much as we could with just the tension of that time and the personalities of that time. It became a little difficult to get as much as we really could have gotten out of those meetings. But I'm reminded of 2016, where, there was another opportunity there for us to really pull some juice, if you will, from just an oh so desperate time that was needed. And so I think every time, as every time goes by, we're able to pull more and more and more. But I think we have a very long road to go. This doesn't happen overnight. This doesn't happen tomorrow. And I think that's why maybe my generation, perhaps in some degrees, loathe me, because a lot of times we want a microwave fix. And while I know that is what we deserve and that's where we should, that's exactly what it is that we should be aiming for, we have to also be patient and understand that this thing is more formidable through the course of process. And that's just what I believe, having to, serve my Congressman Steve Cohen on Capitol Hill. I understood the value of just utilizing the process. You get far when you utilize the process. And I think today was just a sure stand on Congressman's words, Congressman Steve Cohen's words, also Congressman John Lewis' words, is don't be afraid to be processed. Just go through the process.
Well, I think you've addressed a lot of what we heard today about the real work beginning now and changing the laws that lead to fatal outcomes of black and brown people that turn up dead after police encounters. So what does that mean directly here in Memphis as we talk about changing those laws and changing those potential outcomes?
Absolutely. The country is making, in my opinion, and those may agree, I think the country is making an attempt to turn a new leaf and to perhaps get on the stage of building a better tomorrow for your children and my children and all the children that are to come, generations to come. I think Memphis is in some way, of course, there will always be a fight. There will always be a need of resistance to help our city navigate the future in a moral way. I think it's important to understand there will always be conflict. There will always be some tension. But I also believe that our city in general, not a specific legislature or a specific entity, I think our city is trying to get to a space of repentance and perhaps of starting over. And I think we have to be fair. We have to give opportunity and give space for that. And I think hiring the first African American female police chief in the city of Memphis was a great start. I think that was a great start in the right direction. We need a mother. Our city needs to be mothered. Our city needs to be fathered. There are daughters raising daughters. There's sons raising sons. And we have a historical issue with our police department that we have to address. It's a systemic issue that we need to dismantle. It's an oppressive mechanism of evil. And with the community not trusting law enforcement and law enforcement not really having any cultural sensitivity with the community, it's going to produce toxic culture like crime. It's the byproduct. It's what comes out of the oven. So it's time for us to operate harmoniously. And I think the time is now. I think the time is now for us to do it.
Well, I heard a lot of hope in what you just said there. So once you get back, we'll have a lot of talk about that as the search for our next police director continues. Devante, thanks so much for joining us. We'll look to you to hear more of what's happening in Minneapolis. Give us some sense here in Memphis. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks, man. Having me.
Well,